Welcome, engineers. My name is TravisIQ, and this is 5 tips for improving cybersecurity posture in small offices. Join me in the void as we begin this discussion. Number 1 on my list is staff training, specifically anti-phishing. And so training against phishing is absolutely critical. And I will say in small and medium environments, the training should look like, hey, don't click these links. Defer to administrators or your ownership group or the leadership in this environment. This should be a critical component, and it needs to be reiterated over and over and over again. It is the number 1 source of cybersecurity incidents in small and medium environments at a minimum by a mile. So this is number 1 on my list and absolutely critical. I will also say we should be aware then of not just phishing attempts, but also the type of environment that we are working in. So are we working in medical offices? Are we subject to things like HIPAA? Are we subject to things like protected health information? Are these things that we are dealing with? Or are we simply dealing with PII data, personally identifiable information? Basically, every organization is dealing with PII to some extent because you have customer information so that you can reach back out to them, send them a product or whatever it is that you need. And then finally, the 3 majors is PCI DSS, dash DSS. That's payment card industry. That's handling payment card information. And so you need to know and you need to be training in these environments. Finally, I would say there's one more here, and that's what I would call vigilance. You need to make sure that your team is vigilant in terms of the way that they understand their cybersecurity. You need to make sure that they are, I'm going to list a few more things here, that they are doing these things from a policy perspective, from a password perspective, from an account perspective. You need to make sure that they are doing those things and that they are vigilant. You also need to make sure that they are vigilant in terms of who is entering your facility. We need to make sure if you see something, say something. We want our entire team on the same page, especially if you're, let's say, in a medical environment where you have patients coming in and out the door and moving through your facility in different areas. They are going to an x-ray room, or they are going to a treatment room, and they are then going to an exit, and typically people are pointing in a direction. You don't think about this as a part of your cybersecurity policy, but if people are moving through your environment, you should know that physical access to your infrastructure is basically game over from a cybersecurity perspective. And we in the cybersecurity world know this. Number 2, independent accounts. Everyone should have independent accounts. Let me say this again. Everyone should have independent accounts. There should be no shared accounts in your environment. That is for Microsoft accounts and Active Directory and your operating system and access to your machine on a daily basis. This is also for things like SaaS. We have Active Directory, we have software as a service products, we have servers in your environment, we have other products, I don't know, whatever it is, X-ray or other utilities in these environments. I'm just referencing medical office environments, but the utilities that you need to utilize, there should be separate accounts to access all of this infrastructure. Why do we need this? Number 1, for security. That way we have multiple passwords. If your passwords were to be compromised, you shouldn't have a password sharing. We'll talk about password policies in a second. Number 2 is, this is for auditing, for cybersecurity incidents or for any other incidents. If something were to occur and an event were to occur in your environment, you need to be able to go back and determine who was logged onto that machine when that event occurred so that we can go back and we can exclude the users who weren't a part of that. And also we can ask the user that was a part of it. Number 3 here is passwords. And we referenced this when we talked about independent accounts, but passwords as an individual component are extremely critical. You should be enforcing password complexity, you should be enforcing password change requirements, and dependent upon what your software supports and what your hardware and your infrastructure supports, you should also be enforcing multi-factor authentication. You should also be supporting things like authenticator codes or OTP tokens, one-time pass tokens. I'll talk about MFA at another time, but you should be utilizing this in your infrastructure, and you should be requiring password complexity. It is extremely important. Password reuse should be completely denied because this is the critical component for access to your infrastructure. Let's summarize: staff training, independent accounts, passwords, and MFA. These are top 3. I put them at number 1, 2, and 3 for a reason. Number 4 is policies. These are called administrative controls, policies that dictate how your team and how your staff should operate. One great example is log off policies. When you are not at your machine, you should be logged off. Let me give you an example. If you are in an operatory and you are conducting some information gathering with a patient and you step outside to go do something, you should be logging off that machine. You would be shocked at how many times I observe this, especially in medical office environments where people have patients or individuals or public individuals in their environments, in their office or in their operatory, and they step out to do X, Y, and Z, to grab something, to grab a piece of material, to give to the patient or whatever it is, and they leave this machine available. It has protected health information on it. It might have PCI-DSS or even just PII information, and that is critical to the business, and it's critical that it not be exposed either. So log off policies is a great example. Another great example would be things like mandatory vacations. Mandatory vacations, you don't hear this one talked about enough, is a really great way to determine whether things are being done correctly in your environment, because when someone else has to fill in that role, they'll be like, what's going on here? This is not being done correctly, or it is being done correctly, and they can be trained up because what was being done on a daily basis is accurate. Number two is, and this is even more important, especially in small and medium businesses, is uncovering fraud or malicious activity. And you would be shocked to learn how frequently in small and medium businesses fraud is prevalent, and it really is extremely prevalent. It probably goes on an order of issues in environments like phishing for cybersecurity incidents and fraud in small and medium businesses in terms of the major issues you see. And this can be uncovered by good cybersecurity policies and administrative controls. Finally, number 5, this is hire a good MSP, a managed service provider. A lot of business owners don't know what they are looking for, or don't know this term. They think, I need help with my IT, my infrastructure technology. The term for that is a managed service provider. This has been a quick summary of some 5 quick hits. I hope you enjoyed it. As is always the case, engineer, break stuff, have fun. We'll see you next time. Let's go.